Guys, my big green buddy over here and I would like to thank you for showing up to this class of the Comic Book University. We've broken this particular subject down into 9 different parts, and here's one of them right now. Welcome students, this is Professor Bill coming back at you for another lesson at the Comic Book University. I want to apologize for taking so long to continue these particular series of classes. I endeavored to take an incredible undertaking, and the task before me is quite daunting. Breaking through the silliness, you can see that this is going to be a video on the Incredible Hulk. You can see that because it's in the menu below. However, I didn't actually write that in yet. That's the funny part. As I am sitting here, I didn't write that in yet, but as you're watching me saying that I didn't write that in yet, you can already see it down there. So this isn't a conversation about time manipulation. That's going to be a much later episode. What I am going to talk about now, however, is the Incredible Hulk. And what I really want you to understand is what a tremendous undertaking that this really is. I mean, this is daunting, with a capital daunting. I mean, wow, the Hulk, right? I mean, I guess I could have picked anybody, but I chose to pick one of the oldest Marvel characters that there is. Granted, Captain America's Golden Age, and Marvel doesn't have a lot of Golden Age characters. That should be established from the beginning, right? There's Captain America's most famous of them. The first Marvel character, believe it or not, was actually Prince Namor, the Submariner. There's Patsy Walker, who eventually becomes Hellcat. You've seen her in the Jessica Jones Netflix series, right? She's the blonde who eventually... Anyway, I know, weird. She's Golden Age, right? Yeah, anyway. So, while the Hulk may be Silver Age, the Hulk has a tremendous history. And yeah, this is very daunting. So I actually took these 3 days that I've been off really prepping hard. Actually, it's been more than 3 days. It's the reason why I split up my Doomsday video into 2. But I did figure that since I did Doomsday, I really had this hankering to do the Incredible Hulk. Clearly because Doomsday is DC's version of the Hulk. No need to argue about it or fight over it. I know some people are going to be like, no. Yes, sorry. It's reality in this fictitious universe. Doomsday is the DC version of Hulk. And I suppose that Marvel can take it as a great honor that they picked their version of the Hulk to be the one to kill Doomsday. It's fine. But at the end of the day, Hulk has a tremendous history. He is much beloved. As a child, when you are introduced to Marvel Comics, you really only have 2 real choices: Spider-Man or the Hulk for your love, right? Because Spider-Man is that perpetual teenager for the most part, at least when I was growing up. Now I would say it's probably Miles Morales more than anything else. It's still Spider-Man. And the Hulk, even though he was an adult, even though he was a brilliant scientist, as Dr. Bruce Banner, he was also a big green lumbering child. And that's the way that he was actually intended to be. Stan Lee, who was the co-creator of The Incredible Hulk along with Jack King Kirby, they decided, Stan Lee mostly, Jack provided the pictures. Stan Lee decided that he wanted to have a child-like character, hero, who was much beloved, kind of like what Frankenstein could have been, misunderstood. The brute, the monster, that actually wasn't really that monstrous. That's what he wanted, and that's what he got. And he decided to have Character flaw, as he's famous for doing. Right? Marvel was always known as the the flawed heroes. Right? While Superman's invincible to everything except this one green rock that comes from a destroyed planet, his destroyed planet, and blah blah blah. Uh, Wonder Woman can only be bound by, or she only loses her powers if she's bound, and things like that. At the end of the day, an actual tortured soul is very rare to find in DC. Granted, it's one of the reasons why I love Batman so much. A lot of people say that he's DC's Marvel character, even though, yes, I know he existed before Marvel. I just understand where I'm going with this. Anyway, keeping in line with that flawed hero concept, Stan Lee decided to add the Jekyll and Hyde mentality to the Hulk so that he's not always the Hulk. If he were always the Hulk, he can't be beat. He's not going to be beat. You're not going to beat this monster, all right? But if he is flawed in the sense that he turns into a regular man who could be shot, wounded, burned, stabbed, killed, then that could potentially make the story a lot more interesting. Okay. The first appearance of the Hulk was in The Incredible Hulk #1, May of 1962. The Hulk was a tremendous failure. Sorry. I hate to be rude, but yeah, he failed. 6 issues. That's it. He absolutely bombed. Volume 1 of The Incredible Hulk only lasted 6 issues. That's it. No more. And then it was canceled. And they didn't bring the Hulk back into a proper series again until a year and a half later. And we'll get to that. When Hulk was first created, he was gray. Stan Lee meant for him to be gray because he didn't want there to be a nationality to the Hulk. The human side, yeah, you can't draw Bruce Banner as a gray person, right? But they wanted, just like covering Spider-Man completely, anybody could technically be under that mask, right? Well, anybody could have technically been the Hulk, and that's the thing. Nobody ever associated themselves with Bruce Banner. They associated themselves with the Hulk, right? Think about it. Every kid has a temper tantrum. Male, female, whatever, right? Especially boys, it seems, but whatever. Boys have temper tantrums, and the Hulk is basically just a big old temper tantrum. And at best, leave me alone. Hulk just wants to be left alone, right? Like a kid, when he's still pissed off, but he's calming himself down, just leave me alone, right? That's that childlike ideology. That is the brainchild for the Hulk, right? Big, lovable monster. And when he was first created, gray, but that only lasted that first issue because the artist, the colorist, the artist was Jack Kirby. The colorist had a very hard time maintaining consistency with the gray scale. Comics weren't done digitally back then. Nobody could have imagined something like that back in the 60s. So it was called the 4-color tablet, 4-color template, right? And making the gray the same gray panel by panel throughout the entire issue was really hard. So he said, just please pick a color, an actual color. And Stan Lee, in his infinite wisdom, he sat back and he thought it all together, and actually, no, that's not what happened. He simply said, oh, okay, well then make him green. So many of the great decisions in the world, right? That's how it pretty much went. So they made him green starting in issue 2. In those first 6 issues, he did not become the Hulk by stress or anger. as we know today. In fact, it was only by sundown. When the sun went down, the gamma radiation that he was infused with erupted, came out, and he would become the Hulk. He would Hulk out. But he was very intelligent. He didn't really speak in, monotone or mostly monosyllable, and he didn't refer to himself in the third person. He would talk like anybody would talk, just with a little more anger. But that was the Hulk when he was first created, and it wasn't that interesting, seeing as there was already another flawed, giant, misshapen creature. And that's the Thing, Benjamin Grimm in the Fantastic Four. The Fantastic Four had been around for a while, for a lot longer than, not a lot longer, but it was around longer than the Hulk. The Hulk was kind of like considered a copycat. Nobody cared as much as they maybe would have if the Hulk would have come out and there was no Ben Grimm, right? If there was no Thing. But yeah, it was just really considered a copycat. It didn't bowl over well. They had to cancel the series, and that was that. Now, the Hulk wound up making 3 appearances in the Fantastic Four over that year and a half while the series was canceled. Actually, the series was canceled a lot longer than that, and I'll explain. He made an appearance in The Amazing Spider-Man. He made a couple little appearances here and there. And, of course, he was in the Avengers. Yes. But he was only an Avenger for the first 2 issues. In fact, that's a very quick explanation. Loki saw Thor and said, you know what, I'm trapped from in his Journey into Mystery comics. That's where Thor was. Thor didn't have his own series at the time. He was in the Journey into Mystery comics. And Loki had been trapped by Thor in this alternate dimension, reality, prison, whatever, and he was able to send an astral form of himself and still use his powers of illusion, so on and so forth, to make it look as though the Hulk destroyed a train or threatened a train, whatever, something along those lines. Thor went out looking for him, but it wasn't just him who noticed this. Ant-Man and the Wasp had noticed. Iron Man had noticed. Was there anybody else in the original Avengers? There was Thor, Iron Man, and the Wasp, and Giant Man. Actually, it was Ant-Man at the time. The next issue, he was already become Giant Man. And then the Hulk. I think that was it. Boy, how silly of me if I'd forgotten the Avengers. Anyway, basically that's that. And antics. The Hulk was actually hiding in a circus as a strongman. Yeah, the makeup on. Just visualize. Look it up on the internet. It's fun. So he gets pulled out of hiding and more antics ensue. Finally, Thor realizes, hey, it's actually Loki doing this. Grabs Loki, puts the whooping on him, and they apologize to the Hulk for the mistake, right? He was framed, and Hulk eventually, these guys all decided, we're going to join the Avengers. We're going to form the Avengers. And Hulk said, well, it's better to be with you than against you, so I'll join too. Just simply so I could basically keep an eye on you. But by the next issue, there's Phantom Menace. I'll write in the comments what his name was. The Space Phantom, that's what it was. Space Phantom. He shows up and he's able to take a character and put him in limbo, and then he becomes that character instead. So he threw the Hulk into limbo and became the Hulk and started trouble. And the Avengers were like, aha, we knew you were a mindless beast. And they went after him, and then the real Hulk got pulled out, and the Hulk's like, what? And eventually they were able to beat the Space Phantom, but Hulk basically told the Avengers, you can all kiss my butt, because, yeah, you never trusted me, you never thought of me as an actual human being, so screw all of you. And he leapt away. So he joined, like everybody else, as a founding member in issue 1 and promptly quit by the end of issue 2. So the run of a full issue, basically, he was an Avenger. And later his founding membership status was given to Captain America, even though that was in issue 4. He became a they resurrected him. This is a Hulk issue, though, right? That we're talking about, that we're discussing. So basically, the Hulk was never really considered interesting enough to have his own series. Guys, thanks for stopping by. This is Professor Bill, the absolute best teacher you'll ever have, at the Comic Book University, the definitively greatest school you're ever going to attend. And you too can attend the Comic Book University simply by hitting subscribe below. Take part in the conversations by discussing below, and send a like my way. I appreciate it. Talk to you later. Class dismissed.